Hello everyone. So I had a chance to meet like most of you during the last couple of weeks. It was like hella hectic for me. It was also amazing because I was actually convinced to come back to Yerevan for a couple more months because I was actually planning to stay in Silicon Valley for the rest of the year. And one of the reasons I decided to come back was this opportunity to be here and present to you all the knowledge I got from Silicon Valley working as an engineer, as a product manager, and transferring all the expertise I learned from really smart guys from like San Francisco, San Jose, on companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Netflix, and to transfer all the expertise here to Armenia, taking into account it's going to be not affordable for anyone in Armenia actually to go to San Francisco and just stay there for 6 months and gain all the knowledge from those guys. And when I was talking to Karen is actually the co-founder and CEO of ACA, and we were like, why can't we bring Silicon Valley here? Why can't we just find those really smart talent who have this free time and this interest to come to Yerevan, at least for like 1 week, in some cases even for a couple of weeks, in order to share their expertise and learnings they got from those best product companies regarding how to build products that customers truly love. Yeah, so regarding today's meeting, the beginning is going to be more of an admin trivia. I'll just introduce you the logistics, the goals, and all the stuff related to the course. And yeah, we're going to have some icebreaker because it's going to be more of like also communication training as well. Because honestly, from my personal experience, one of the best skills a product manager can gain throughout their career is the communication. Because at the end of the day, you're going to stand in front of the audience. You're going to stand in front of the your board, your company board, is going to just present this new breakthrough idea which is going to change the way your company works and the way your company is going to just grow their revenue. But before we start, because most of you guys don't know me, who is this guy? So just quick introduction about myself, my expertise, and my interest in general. So I'm an ex-engineer. I started coding when I was 13. Yeah, I was a geeky kid. My father also just forcing me to go to computer science classes when I was in secondary school. Then when I was during the last years actually of my school, I decided to pivot towards product management because that was something I was mostly interested about, and coding wasn't something I wanted to do for 24/7. And I had a chance to work with product teams for 9 years, and honestly, one of my biggest advantages that I truly value is this opportunity to work with really smart people from literally everywhere, from Armenia, from Silicon Valley, from Germany and Israel, and those people truly helped me to shape my career as an engineer, then as a product manager, and to then also just to utilize my skills on improving products I'm working on. I went to UC Berkeley, I did my computer science degree there, and some fun fact, I'm a really huge fan of open source development. I wasted 3 years of my life on writing open source, which didn't bring me any money, unfortunately. I was hoping I'll get some. Yeah, and some of my works you can find on GitHub if you're interested about that. And yeah, I'm currently on my own company with my co-founder. We also went to Berkeley. We used to be roommates. Now we're just doing our dream job, having our company. We have our presence in the US, in Moscow, and also here in Yerevan. And this is a bunch of the list of companies and logos I had a chance to work with as a full-time. Those are not the companies I had a chance to work as a consultant or a part-time employee. If you have any questions about the culture, product culture, if you're even interested to apply to those companies, some of my managers are working there, so I can just even, I don't know, just help you to get there if you want to. Yeah, and some fun fact regarding these class demographics. As a product manager, you have to be as data-driven as possible, and I'm trying to use this data-drivenness in education as well. And I'm super excited to announce that we have a diverse group of people here. At least I would say around 30% of the class are coming from product management background, which makes sense. A lot of product managers are just interested in improving their skills in the way that product managers like Google and Amazon and Netflix are usually doing. But we also have a huge audience from operations, strategy, business development, human resources, finance, marketing, and engineering, which is awesome. That's our age range, which means like every student here has like at least 5 years of experience in a different discipline, which is amazing. So most of you guys already have a chance, like you got the chance to work with like enterprises, like growing stage companies, even startups. So this is not your first experience working for a company. And one number I'm very proud of, I also sent this to my Silicon Valley friends who were telling Armenia is not like it's kind of a sexist country. I'm like, if Armenia is a sexist country, just look at the demographics. Usually when you take like an engineering or product course in Stanford or Berkeley, the numbers are reversed. Here, you can see the real numbers for us. Okay, so important facts about the course, which I would love to highlight from the beginning. So we have two main objectives for this course. The first one is more of the theoretical objective, which aims to basically help everyone here to gain the knowledge of product management from A to Z, the way it is usually done in companies like Google, Amazon, and Netflix. I have the chance to talk to some of you guys, but just to remind you about this, when you are applying to Google, I say, right, and you're like product manager or like entry-level product manager, they usually don't fully assign you to a new product because they don't trust you. I mean, you never worked at Google, you never had a chance to work in product management, and they're like, I mean, this guy is not the expert of the customer, he's not the expert of the data, doesn't know enough stuff, so we can trust this guy. And usually what they do, they just assign you a senior mentor, like usually a senior product manager or group product manager, and their goal is basically to teach you the way Google does product management, like the way Google discovers the value for their customers, the way Google delivers the value for their customers, and what are the main responsibilities of a product manager, let's say at Google, and also what are the values that the product manager brings to the table. Yeah, and we are here to basically have even more advanced version of this rotational program because we're not going to like directly go and mimic one company. Our goal is just to combine all the expertise together and just figure out what's the most effective way of like teaching product management in the duration of 5 months actually. And yeah, and we're going to concentrate on two really big pictures. The first one is the product discovery. I told you about this before. So that's, I truly believe, is one of the most important skills a product manager should have to be a rock star. Because unfortunately, product management is more or less like pivoted towards the delivery side of the product, which is not like a regional problem, it's like everywhere. And we're here to teach you more of the discovery because there's a lot about delivery artifacts. If you want to learn, let's say, about agile delivery, you can just Google online, you can just like lie on your couch and read how much you want. Unfortunately, there's like limited amount of resources and expertise that you can find online regarding how to like discover the value for your product, for your customer. And the practical aspect of the course is going to be the following. In the duration of 5 months, everyone is going to have their own product idea, and they're going to start from ideation process, literally from ideation. And the goal for the next 5 months is to not only learn the theoretical part of the product management according to the standards of Silicon Valley, but also to utilize the knowledge you gained in order to develop your product. And the goal here is to get to the point when you have a validated product prototype. It's important, not an actual product, because I don't expect you to code. I mean, you don't need to code actually. The goal here, to get into like a prototype, which you can prove to the class and also to me, that you're very close to getting an actual customer who is ready to pay for it. It's really challenging, but it's going to be a lot of fun, trust me. So, just short intro about our guest lectures. So the guys are from Google, Amazon, and Discovery. The girl from Google, she's going to be the first lecturer who's going to visit us in the next few weeks, I would say. She's the product manager of Google Chrome. So she's just managing more of the B2C side of the product management. And she's going to be here to teach you like the way Google does to discover the next version of Google Chrome for literally hundreds of millions of users. And the guy, he was a product manager at Amazon. He was working on the forecasting products of Amazon and also on AWS. I'm sure most of you know what AWS is huge. It's a B2B side of product management, so he's here to teach how would you like run discovery programs for B2B side. And Argam, he's a veteran in product management. He used to be VP of product at Pixar for a couple of years, and then he moved to discovery, and he's running both the engineering, the technology, and product side of the company. Course format. I think this is very important to highlight right now. So if you have any question, you can just like ask me right now. Okay, from my personal side, there are going to be 3 lectures per week. Each lecture is going to be like around 2 hours, so that means like 6 hours per week on lectures. And as RP has mentioned, there are going to be supplementary lectures about like areas which are not exactly product management, but they are also like very related to product managers like daily life a lot, like let's say user experience, like agile engineering, agile delivery, and also computer science concepts. I'm sure like some of the lectures might not be like new for you. Let's say if someone is an engineer, so you don't actually need to come to the engineering discussions. But if you don't know engineering, this is like a perfect chance for you to learn the big concept of engineering, like the high level like vocabulary. Because at the end of the day, you're going to work with engineers, right? So you got to understand like at least some of the like high level concepts in general. Regarding the reading materials, there's going to be a lot of reading, like a lot of reading. I'll try to cover all the concepts like during these lectures, but sometimes like lectures are not fully enough to cover the concepts. That's why I'll just like add supplementary reading materials for you guys, which are going to fully cover the material from the lectures and plus some more. Some of the readings are written by myself, because I love writing, I guess that's why. And but some of them are also written with like really great talents, like Marty Kagan, then also like really smart guys. So I've seen some of their writings. I'm not trying to mimic something if they are doing like really well. And I don't expect readings to be like that long on a weekly basis. Probably like maximum like 3-4 hours. If you're not a very fast like reader, but usually it should be like maximum 1 hour if you're like proficient like with English in general. So yeah, there are gonna be homeworks. Homeworks are not there to just be like, I don't know, like a challenge for you. It's more of like to make sure you are just like you didn't get behind, because there's a lot of material and we're going to have this project. So I want to make sure we're on the same path, because we're going to actually like gain knowledge from the lectures and utilize on your actual project. And I want to have like this whole like process as parallel as possible. And yeah, so I've already talked about the project, and I will also have like individual office hours. I'm not sure if you guys know what office hours are. You probably know, right? So office hours are basically in a university program when there's a lecturer who is teaching you right about something. If you have like specific questions and if you want to have like one-on-one conversation with the lecturer, they usually schedule like office hours so you can have like I don't know, like just 20 minutes, like 30 minutes, like conversation where when you can ask your like questions and get like answers as soon as possible. Yep, and there's going to be grading. So because yeah, I'm not a huge fan of competition, honestly. We can talk a lot about like competition and education part, and why I don't like competition when there's a aspect of education in general. But this is a way, like a certain way to encourage you to participate more, to be more active, and also to make sure you gain all the learnings, because it's a long-term commitment, let's be honest. Like 5 months, it's a long-term commitment. What I expect and what I really want from you guys, to be committed enough to gain all the learnings from this course, because as I've mentioned, some of the materials is going to be really hard to find online. And if you want to really to learn those stuff, you have to go there. And it's going to be hella expensive. So if you like just keep the pace, if you just do the readings and do lectures, you're going to get like straight A's, don't worry. Communication and collaboration. Okay, RP told you guys about some of the stuff. Just to make sure, I will be on Slack. I expect you guys to use Slack for group level, like class level, and individual communication, because I would really love if you guys communicate with each other as well. And we're going to have this Google directory actually, where we're going to have all the materials regarding the class. You're going to have the lecture slides. If you want to take a look at the slides, you're going to have the content and stuff like that. If you have something really urgent, that's my email. So if you have like urgent question, like, or I don't know, if you want some advising or I can help you somehow, just like ping me to this email. I'll just respond as early as I possibly can. I usually respond in a couple of minutes if you just ping to this email. Okay, questions? Everything was clear so far? Yeah. Yeah. If you have comments, I would love to hear, because usually when I speak the way like guys from like Silicon Valley speak, because they don't have enough time to like speak like very relaxed manner. So they're all busy, So if you think it's too fast or like it's too slow, I don't think anyone's gonna think it's too slow. But anyway, if you have any questions so far regarding the program, the course, the goals, the objectives, the key results, is the best time to ask.
You have two about working materials. You say they are online.
Yep.
So hard or expensive for both? You say both. Hard to find and expensive.
The materials?
Yeah, reading materials.
Oh yeah, materials are all free. I mean, they're all online. I would say like 50% of them are written by me. So yeah, and the rest are just going to be like the PDF versions. You don't have to buy anything. Yeah. So that's about the readings.
And also regarding materials, we are expecting to get materials for the next course.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Usually I would just like upload the material for the week at the beginning of the week. If you have time to catch up with the material, yeah, I would love to. I would just like upload today's material like right after the lecture. So if you want to go home, you have like there's going to be like 6 chapters, which is going to be our upcoming discussions for this week. And if you want to just go through the material, I would just really love if you did it. And yeah, materials are also very helpful, because let's say you go like absence for a couple days, yeah, you will still get the slides, but the slides are not fully informative, right? And the materials basically is covering the full part of the slides, plus additional discussions if you want to just go above and beyond.
About scoring.
Yes.
There was a 30-50% and so we clarify what is it, and if we need to do something that we are not absent, how it is included here.
Sure. So just to clarify, you want to hear what's the format, and if you are just absent that day, how can you retake the midterm? Okay. Basically, midterms are there to check the theoretical background. So we're going to have like a lot of theoretical discussions. So we're going to have like a lot of like case studies regarding like discovering products, delivering products. Well, what I want to make sure that you are aware of those case studies, because they are truly helpful. I mean, that's your job if you're going to eventually go and use those case studies, but that's something just that was discovered by really smart product people, and it worked for like a lot of cases. And the theory you're going to learn is going to also help the way you just do product thinking and like product building as well. So, and yeah, if you're absent, we can definitely like figure out stuff. I will try to be as flexible as possible, because I know, like, I think most of you are just working full time. So yeah, I will try to make everything as flexible as possible. I don't think we're going to have an issue. And that's, as I've mentioned, those stuff are not here to test you. Those stuff are here to make sure you gain the learnings. That's it. I mean, even if you didn't score that well on the midterm, we can still have a one-on-one. I can go through the materials from the midterm and make sure the part that you didn't digest yet, you will get enough time and also like enough communication with the instructor to get full information about what you have missed so far. Did I answer your question? Partially?
Yeah.
Okay, we can just talk more about it.
For me, it's not clear why we should sign something.
Why should you?
Okay. Sign something that we are here.
Oh, sign something. I don't think that wasn't my idea, honestly. Whose idea was that?
Sorry, are we talking about the activity? Okay. I think that
No, I mean what is for if and another.
Not that it's just for administrative, for me to give the certificate to make sure that we are not missing anyone, like there is nobody that just didn't receive an email, we are sorry about it. But if that process takes long way to go.
I didn't even see that was a paper actually. Just yeah, okay.
For my dad, like,
No worries. Questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So over the course, we will go through the tools which product managers are usually using, like tools for wireframing, user stories, prototypes.
Sure, yeah. I mean, and you're going to be the one who's going to use those tools as well. Because let's say we're going to learn about like 5 seconds testing, right? Which you're going to learn like in the upcoming discussions, which is like designed for testing your product messaging. And there's like really like well-defined, well-implemented tests called like 5 seconds conduct. It's like online tests, and we're also going to just like reveal those like tools. And while you're going to just have the demonstrations here, part of your homework is going to be utilizing those tools to work on your product idea. Yep.
Non-technology. What kind of tools we are going to cover?
You mean the engineering part, right? So okay, we are not going to go like too deep into the coding side of it because I don't really expect any strong product manager to be like a coding genius. I mean, if you know technology, it's going to be your own benefit because at the end of the day, you're building a technology. So if you know how the technology works, it's all your advantage, honestly. But during the discussion, it's going to be more of the high-level description of software products. Let's say, was the server side, was the client side, how does the server side communicate with the client side, like let's say, what is a database management system, and as part of the class, which is going to be covered by myself, we're also going to learn SQL, so different people just name it different ways. It's a query language, if anyone doesn't know yet, which directly works with a database if you want to just query data from there. Because part of my goal here is to make you guys as data-driven as possible. And just to be considered as data-driven, at least you should know how to work with the data. And we're also going to have like very small homework / project where I'm going to just give you like a real-time database. And while you're just learning this query language, you're going to literally query to get some data. I expect like guys who are coming from engineering background, I mean, you don't have to like attend those lectures because, come on, if you're an engineer, you have done SQL so much. But as I've mentioned, engineers only were like 7% of the class. So for the rest, SQL is something very new. That's it? Okay, good. And now my favorite part. We're going to have an icebreaker. Do you guys know what icebreaker is?
yeah.
Awesome. So what I expect right now for all of you guys to just stand, just introduce yourself in front of your class. Like, I don't know, what's your current background? And if you try to answer to those questions, like what's your favorite product and why do you like this product so much? And what's your least favorite product and why do you hate this product so much? That will be great. And I know I can, if you guys want, I can just start by myself, then we can just go like this. Yeah? So, okay, so you know, my name is Rafael, so you know enough about my background. Regarding my favorite product, it's actually Medium. I'm sure most of you know what Medium is. Because I was expecting something like Medium for a long time. Actually, the founders of Medium were like the founders of Twitter, and they transformed this whole concept of micro-blogging to like more actual blogging, which is not the traditional way of blogging. And Medium created this like revolutionary culture of storytelling. And I'm a huge fan of storytelling, and most of the articles I found, like high-quality articles about storytelling, is about like is on Medium, that platform. And my least favorite product is actually Jira from Atlassian. You guys can probably guess why. because we're gonna actually have a study about Jira and why so many people hate Jira so much. And Jira was the reason I kind of don't like the product. It was just because they're using this inside-out product management like methodology when implementing their product. We're gonna learn about it very soon. So, and I don't think that's the best way when trying to bring value to your customers. And Jira might be a good tool for some like sort of an enterprise, but when you're trying to like satisfy like to all the customers being a B2B product, you're just eventually going to become like a feature buffer and just bunch of stuff which individually could bring you value, but there's so much that makes you so much confused that you even don't want to like dig deep into the product and to actually sense the value. So that's about myself. So we can just start from here. So you can see.
I just need to think about the
Sure, I mean,
favorite product. If you give me some time.
We can start from Haik. I think Haik is more prepared. He seems more prepared and confident. So.
Like, for one favorite product is Spotify.
Okay.
Why I love Spotify because Spotify is the most beautiful part of Spotify is discovery free. Spotify is actually a music application where you can find any music that you want. Why I like discover part because they have maybe one of the best AI features that can detect your taste for music and offer you music that is like 99% you like. Maybe I would like the product of Apple Snap
Oh.
because it's not running.
Okay. Good. Oh, we can just volunteer then if you guys if.
But can you introduce yourself as well? Because we are very curious. Like, I know everyone, but not everyone. You introduce yourself as well, because I would be very curious if I didn't know.
Okay, I'm Isaac. I'm product owner in Backstrap. I'm product owner of CR.
Yeah, go for it.
My name is Kaan. I'm software developer at company named Prime. My favorite product, I don't know if it's product from your perspective, is Amazon. It's a product that makes products because
Yep.
the huge company, but it is acting like a startup, and Jeff Bezos says that they run philosophy. And I just like how they spend a lot of money in R&D and exploring customer needs and doing stuff. And my least favorite product is Asian DevOps. If you see it, you will hate it.
I work with it. I quit.
It is much worse than Jira, so
Yeah.
Jira is good. It has 3 names since 3 years. Asian DevOps.
Engineers will understand how terrible it
This
is.
is one more thing to hate it.
Yep.
And
Okay.
that's it.
Go for it.
I'm Shisha.
Okay.
I'm a data specialist in the world, and I don't do recruiting.
HR doesn't do recruiting. What do you do?
I'm more into organization structure
Okay.
and also employee engagement. What I like most is the research page because I like that part very much and it's personal where you can find deeper articles. And what I hate the most is workplace provided by Facebook because it's the same like Facebook and they say like it's for companies but no difference. It's the same as Facebook. That's why I hate it. There's no
It's like your employees can use Facebook and they're like we're on the workspace, right? But like it was a good reason to start the project. Okay. Next. Yep, go for it.
I'm Marco. I'm Marco, Chief Advisor at Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite product is HubSpot. Why I love this product? Because it has an awesome customer
Cool.
This favorite one is maybe Trello. I think it is very old-fashioned.
Really?
I don't like it.
Interesting. How big your company is
How big was
in terms of the like number of employees?
because
For your company.
Yeah.
about 40.
And what's the tool you're using for like task management, project management?
Actually, I use ClickUp.
Okay, that's a good one. What about the company? Oh, you guys don't have it yet.
I use ClickUp for my just for
Personal
my
stuff.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
And my favorite was not have anything, don't have anything with engineering. This is Vivino and report. Vivino because I love wine and I can discover the vineyards of all the countries in the world through
Okay.
that. And report because it has a place to be worked on, to elaborate, but I like it because I can concentrate on the stuff that I want to read and in the same place. That's my favorite, and the least one would be SAP. I don't know if you know that, and stuff.
Oh yeah. And why?
It's
Just curious.
not working. Well, maybe it's our company, but it's always like it's all the obstacles that I have because of it.
I've heard bad feedback about SAP actually. So not the first company.
So,
Main problem for each product.
Yep. Who's next?
Okay.
Yeah, just go for it.
I'm a master's student in English. I study English and I work at ACA. My favorite product is Trello because it's simple.
Oh.
It's simple and genius. And Pinterest because like you can organize, you can gather everything and like create your own paradise somewhere in your phone. And my least favorite is Thunderbird because it's a help for perfectionists. Like it's a help. Okay, I will ask you a few questions. If you can ask or explain how it works, I will say okay. So
What was the
Thunderbird. It's a manual
plan?
client.
Fine. Sis.
Okay.
You can go then. Yeah, let's go for it.
I'm a risk control specialist, and plus I'm doing some product management for the last 3-4 months. My favorite product is actually Microsoft Excel.
Okay.
This is a really fantastic something that just gives a lot of possibilities to do. Actually, I use it in everywhere. In office, in work, at home. But for the least favorite product, I don't know again with Jira because I have it also. That's just terrible. I don't know. I hate like working with that stuff. It's really hard to understand without any class or any guide. So that's that.
Good. Awesome. We share some common interests. Actually, that's good. Yeah. Ike Jan?
Okay, I'm Mike. I'm Group Product Manager at Discard. I would mention two favorite products, Google and LinkedIn. According to just always growing. And according to LinkedIn, I really like the UX and particularly the filters they are implementing. And they
So you do some search on LinkedIn.
People.
So you do some search.
Not only, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Fighting too.
And I don't like Facebook. But that's because of the
Who likes Facebook, honestly? Like, come on.
I don't like those other classes, yes. I don't like the social platform.
Your anti-social media stuff. Okay.
That concept, I don't like the concept. Because of that, I don't like it.
That's quite interesting because like LinkedIn itself could be also considered.
Yeah, it is relative, it has conception, you are not able to use all times, only not necessary things.
Yes, makes sense.
Facebook, it depends on you.
Yep. Good. Go ahead.
I'm ready. I work as a user. That's why the first two products that came to my mind are Staff Planner and Career Center. I like Staff Planner very much because it is very easy, very user friendly. They have very good customer support center. No, why?
like just to make sure, like like demographics, like 7% of the class are like from human resources.
It's half in
Yeah,
Okay,
but
they have a really interesting website. They have they have also blogs, etc. And regarding the career center, it is really very old-fashioned. They are not even flexible. They have nothing but job posts, and they do not have a search engine. Yeah, that's what it is.
yep. Yep.
My name is Janusz. Currently, I work as a translator. There are a number of products that I like, which Netflix, because it provided the opportunity to watch certain products in two languages with scripts available, which allows in this time to improve your local skills, and it doesn't annoy you with additional ads. Stuff like that. Among the products that I don't like is an app called Astro 3D. I downloaded it to observe the planets of that topic, and the information just isn't there. It's not enough for me to receive the information I'm looking for.
Okay. Awesome. Yep.
I was network administrator for 12 years at a company called Uber, and recently I was founder and CEO of a restaurant called my favorite product is
You can advertise your business right now, by the way. The best food ever. I went there last night. I didn't like. So.
my favorite product is Shazam and Food. I think you all know why.
Your least favorite? Okay. Awesome. Go for it.
So I'm Nelly, I'm from Moscow. I switched to IT for recent months. So I work as a business analyst, but I have no such. I just say that being an analyst, I have worked with different applications like SPSS, IBM,
find out the way how to perform that task. That's why I find UX and WeChat very terrible.
They call it like very like Asia specific UX, which is also like different the way like Europeans, like Americans perceive the idea of UX. So yeah, that's interesting. Who's next? Yeah, go for it.
Hi everyone, my name is Shani. I'm associate in the Armenian audit and consulting company. I don't have IT background. My favorite product is Kindle because like you can read easily and very comfortable to read books. So concerning my least favorite product, I love the product.
Sure. Yeah. Finally.
My name is Anna. I'm working at insurance company. I'm responsible for the reinsurance part. I'm new in IT field, so everything is new for me. About my favorite product, I like very much Telegram, and also I have just recently find out new application, SolarLearn.
Yep.
If you know, where it's a learning platform where you can study or learn some languages, programming languages.
The founders are Armenian, by the way.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know that. So it's for basic knowledge. It is really good for me. I have just go through the HTML, so other languages. It's really good. And you can there have discussions with many people and give comments, get answers to the questions which you have during the learning. So about least favorite product for me, maybe it's application of Viva Salentes because it's useless.
Did they have like an application? I didn't know about it.
I have because they said that you can change your minutes
Okay.
to megabytes, so I just downloaded it, but I can't use it, so it's useless. Everything you can find in the application, you can find it on their website, so that's all from my side.
Okay.
SolarLearn changed as a startup currently in 2017, and the founder is a woman. Yay!
Good. See how advanced we are over Silicon Valley?
I think we are competitors.
Okay. I know the guy. He was the CTO, I think. I'm not sure if he's still the CTO, but we. Okay, the previous one was the guy. Yeah, I guess they fired him. So now the CTO is a woman. They killed. Okay. Who's next? Yeah, go for it.
I'm Mohanes. I work for the best financial company in Armenia. Armenia Bank, of course.
Okay, that's good.
And
Are you a sales guy?
Yes.
Makes sense.
I implement B2B sales, and I have my own small business also. It's online.net, online platform for buying contact lenses. And my favorite product is A26 Bank, German bank, which don't have any branch, and it's work with only app. And with app, they provide banking service all Europe. It's first online bank fintech platform, right? And my favorite product is my own product, is online.app.
Good.
Because with slowly, order is hard, and I don't have app yet.
Okay. Assume, I mean, you're critical towards your product because there are no perfect products. That's good. So that's a good sign, actually. Who's next? Yeah. Hi.
I'm Amalia. I am product development specific stage, and my favorite products are many. So I have a number of useful LinkedIn and subscribers. I do love LinkedIn for the learning part. I
as long as you have everyone. So okay, yeah.
I'm working as a development extra, so I'm fond of from to your application. It doesn't matter where you are, you can always have your preferred destination, and we will provide you information regarding pricing and also time by bus, by taxi, or something like that. And I take Zoho, it's like a CRM software, and using it every day, so I know like.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Zoho? Yeah.
I hate that, honestly.
I
Yeah.
hate too. It's flexible.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Yun. I'm currently working with the customer support at Bella Technology. Before I was in Nigeria, by the way.
Ooh, interesting.
People from that area. Yeah. And for my favorite product, I mentioned vaccine because I'm traveling often and it really helps me a lot. Travel to find anything I want. And about the less favorite ones, I would global stuff, and also I did the one products, I don't know what you said, but it's products. It's again some database, but it's very slow working. Now I'm working in that space.
Okay. So you're facing all the issues. Good, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Ikram. I'm from now the department, but from September for the department, the new project manager. From my favorite product, I want to number from army and market, so the PG or logging by PG or logging because they solve our driver or logging of program to make momentum for UN number country. How that's favorite product. For example, okay.
Okay. Just for example. And any specific reason?
Because they could spend more our time which we can spend to learn.
Yep. On more worthwhile things, actually. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Okay. No response. Are their numbers correct? Because I've heard complaints that even like numbers of their like back office is not even correct.
They are offering very specific, but they are not solving your problem.
Okay.
They have a line chat, they can answer in 2 minutes, but it doesn't mean that they can solve.
Yeah, you get your problem solved.
You can just spend a month every day, you can write them, they will respond to you, but
Check. The next, right?
hello, my name is Patrick. I'm working for my project manager for this video. I work as an IT project manager for SDF. What about my favorite product? I like, as a project manager, I like InVisual very much because it helps me to visualize the project that my team and me built in order to show the customer. And what about the last favorite product? Maybe I will mention Fiverr because I hate when some unknown companies send you advertisements which I don't want to receive. That's it.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a logistics manager. I have an IT background. about the favorite setup, maybe like it's a very old-fashioned application. I know that because I know my computer or my online partners there. About this favorite one, maybe WhatsApp. I don't know why, but I don't know. Even I can explain why.
Okay. Maybe the experience is not the best. I mean, you're using it because you kind of have to just respond to messages. Yeah. Not your favorite messenger. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Kyle. My colleague application is one.
Yep.
So you can say your plan, you don't need to wait into. I feel very long.
Which makes a lot of sense.
It's favorite for everyone, like Airbnb, Booking, and many other entertainment applications. Also for relaxing, I use OCA, that's game, Steam. It's a very nice drive, very relaxing music to relax. OCA.
Yeah.
Nobody interrupts my information consumption with their comments, likes, etc. And I like Remember because it combines messaging social media. The product I do not understand is Snapchat.
Yep.
The idea behind it.
Basically.
They only have the cute logo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hi. Ooh, that was good. That was really good.
Well, my favorite product is they know how to care about you and how to keep. And there is also one tiny product that I love. I love it in systems. It's Validator.
Okay.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, we're using it.
Yeah.
Just for different purpose.
What's the name?
Validator. Yeah. So that's the dummy email that I
Yeah.
something during my work. I need
Yeah. It's also very useful like QA automation if you don't have to just manually create like a real like email, so it's just very useful.
It's very easy and the worst one that I had a bad experience and how to use it, it was Spark.
Okay. Sport?
Yes, it's like an application of internal use, again application.
Oh, okay. Because there's a technology called Sport. I got like okay. Gotcha. Never heard about it. Okay. Awesome. You. I really didn't stop. Yeah.
I'm working as a financial analyst, and talking about my favorite product, I can say that I like WhatsApp because it's the app for communicating with my friends abroad, and also keeping the high quality and the others. And talking about the product that I don't like is the application from UTaxi because always location is wrong in my mobile phone, maybe it's from me. Also,
Okay. Good. Let me just utilize my memory. Yeah.
My name is Joseph. I'm a quality assurance engineer at Microsoft. I was
hands-on trying video as a feature I discovered pretty in school. Like why you hover the mouse while watching something, a series or something. It gives you the actors, the references to jokes, soundtracks, while on that second in the screen. It's a pretty good. That's how
Nice.
It is called IMDb belongs to normal.
yeah.
They have that. They collect all the jobs from the actors made it different.
That's a good comment.
Yeah, they have that.
Okay. Who's left? I'm trying to remember. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, I'm a consultant.
Yep.
So my first job Evernote.
Yeah.
Really organized notes, ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and my favorite would be favorite vision and out. Another like big purpose to me is Slack.
Okay.
It's very efficient. Like things that so that someone can be in different teams at the same time. And use those devices. So I can keep meeting messages, and it's very efficient on the one side and the two side and easy.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Is there anyone left?
Like who would like Evernote? Someone logging something right would also love it. And then we have AI is running here. But if you like Thunderbird, you may also like some message UI of
Yep. No worries. Anyone left? I guess we're done, right? Okay. Awesome. So that actually means that we can actually begin. But before we begin, yeah, I'm just gonna have a quick overview about this week's discussion, which is about empowering product success. And as a product manager of your company, one of like the biggest roles, like people usually call it the responsibility, but I just put like even above the responsibility. Because it's usually not written on your resume, it's not written on your paper job description. But if there's like one single word that describes your role in a product company, is the one who empowers. And we're going to learn a lot about empowering, like the way product managers empower different aspects of the business, like empowering product success, like empowering their people inside the product teams in your company, even empowering your knowledge to eventually bring certain value to your product team. Yeah, and the first part, like the first chapter, which is, I call it chapter because when you start your reading, that's going to be exactly the first chapter. It's about the bad, ugly approach. This was my major lesson for the last 6 years, honestly. And whatever I'm going to just tell you is going to be like the compressed lesson which I have learned during the last 6 years working with different companies, enterprises, like growing stage companies, even startups. And why it's called bad and ugly? Because it's very old school technique which might work like 40 years ago when there was a very limited amount of competition, right? There was no red oceans. Red ocean is basically the description of the competitive market. So when 40 years ago, when there was less competition, you could possibly succeed using this old style and old school approaches. But right now, when you can find competition nearly everywhere, because every day news literally hundreds of startups are getting born, which some of them are even part of your industry. Those approaches are not as strong for our modern days anymore. But before I start, just quick short anecdote about my personal story and my personal experience. So as I told you, I'm still a product manager and I'm also a startup founder. And in fact, there are a lot of similarities between the role of a product manager and the startup founder. In fact, actually, one of the startup founders should always be the product manager, at least for the first couple of years of the company. And when I was, and I'm still a product manager and product guy, I make mistakes, and mistakes are indisputable part of my life. In fact, product managers, they fail a lot. They usually say we fail sometimes, but trust me, they fail nearly every day. And people usually have like very terrible opinion about the failure because they think if you fail, it means you're not good enough. You haven't achieved a certain point to be qualified for like non-failure situations. However, the most important part here is not about failing. It's more about like how costly your failures are as a product manager. It's not only about product management, it's like literally like in other disciplines as well, right? As an engineer, you can fail because you wrote like a big like software, like wasted like 8 months of development, then you're just launching the software, you're having some like kind of like unpredicted like traffic towards your product and the product crashes. It's a failure, it's a huge failure. But it was like 8-month failure. Instead, you could just make this failure like less expensive by doing more experimentations. And the off-feeling, which is terrible, for not only product managers, but also like for technology companies as well, because I've seen like numerous cases when companies invest like literally like millions of dollars every year on building something which is eventually going to fail. Like you might remember like just meeting with your like top managers, C-level guys, your like startup founder friends, and whenever they talk about new idea, right, they describe like innovative, revolutionary. It's gonna come and change something. And then those guys, they go and implement something just like for quarters, like literally for quarters. They launch the product and they fail because, not because of technology honestly, and not because of the design, just because they don't have customers. And in fact, most of the products, like they fail just because of the other stuff, like technology was not good, design wasn't good, just because they didn't have customers. Because if you're actually solving the true value, you are eventually going to get at least early adopters. And early adopters are the people who like value your product so much, they understand the value your solution brings so well that they are even ready to pay right now. If you can't get those early like adopters right now, what are the chances that like after a few months you're gonna just bring big fish to your company, to your product? Just one very interesting secret. In fact, this whole like course is gonna be about uncovering the secrets. And the smallest secret that we're gonna learn today, there's no like universal like success like formula, honestly. If it was like universal success formula, everyone would be like, just like you could be like millionaires here. You wouldn't even be here. But there's a different discoveries that has been done with like really smart people, like entrepreneurs from different like disciplines. Not only about engineering, but also like in manufacturing, even like in aircraft design and stuff like that, and disciplines like that. And those smart guys, they at least figured out ways of reducing our failure. Because every time I'm starting something new, right, a business, right? Let's say my business is going to be producing this cup. There is at least some percentage I'm going to fail. I mean, let's say it's a very small number, it's not the real case, but let's say 0.25%. So knowing that there is some percentage of potential failure, how can I make sure that if I fail, it's going to be as early as possible and as cheap as possible? Yeah, and this brings to my research that I have done this year when I was talking with like technology companies in Silicon Valley, Israel, Germany, in Armenia as well. And there was a very interesting pattern, the way the best product teams discover and deliver products. Honestly, like Amazon like product teams, Google product teams, they are actually far from each other. Some guys are like, let's say, in like Mountain View, the other guys are in Seattle, pretty far, actually, those two cities from each other. And it's not like they communicate very often. But those product teams, they have some really similar common patterns every time when they're trying to discover value and then deliver that value. And here, we're actually going to talk about, not exactly today, but in our further discussions, about what are those patterns, and what are the case studies that proved the efficiency of those patterns, and how can those patterns help us to benefit as product managers and also contribute to the success of our products. So yeah, so this is going to summarize my short story. So when at the beginning of my 20s, I was actually working in Silicon Valley. A couple of years later, I decided to move back to Yerevan, and I had the chance to work with some really good companies, honestly. And then I just moved back and forth. So I visited even some companies in Germany as well. And here I'm going to tell you a very interesting story, but I want to make sure that none of you are going to take this story personally, because this was the biggest revelation in my life as a product manager, and I was shocked. The day I revealed this to myself, it was shocking, because for many years I was functioning not in the best way that I could possibly function as a product manager in my company, as someone who could contribute to the success of my product. And here, I'll just discuss the case studies on one of the companies, an enterprise company, which I had the chance to work with. And at the end, I'm going to ask you a question. The question will be, is this something that your company is doing right now? But before that question, I'll just tell the story, and my bet at the end will be that for the majority's case, your companies are exactly functioning the same way that I'm going to present here. So let's say we have this hypothetical company X, right? And let's call this company a CEO-centric and request-centric company. It's a CEO-centric company because CEO is actively participating in decision-making process for products. And CEO is the guy who just pushes new product ideas and kind of forces the product teams to immediately implement those ideas because he or she thinks it's going to definitely work. And it's request-centric because the company is pretty much implementing every single feature is coming from the customers. Literally, there's no the word no in the company. If there's a feature, we got to implement it. Because why? Because that's what customer wants. And I'm going to present a pipeline of processes usually these types of companies are using. Those words are not exactly used by those companies. It's more of a summary. I chose my words to specifically generalize the way this entire process works. And everything starts from the ideation process. Ideation process when, as I've mentioned, the CEO decides to implement a new cool feature X, which he or she thinks is going to change their industry, is going to make their competitors less competitive, and going to grow their revenue crazy. Or the other case, when a customer of yours just asks a feature for you to implement, and you just directly take a feature, put your backlog, and just implement based on its prioritization. Once this ideation process is done, usually the next step which comes is the business analysis. And what that means. As I've mentioned, the two sources of this ideation are coming either from the CEO of the company, right, or the customer. And for big companies, for enterprises, let's say, you can receive features tens, even sometimes even hundreds of features every day. And the goal of business analysis here is to basically ensure we have some format of categorization and prioritization of all those features we're going to implement. And companies usually they introduce this concept of a roadmap, which is honestly an output-based roadmap. And the goal of those roadmaps is to make sure to tackle two issues. The first issue is the following. Let's make sure that we are prioritizing the most important ideas at the beginning, and then we can just take care of the rest. And the second problem the company is trying to make sure, when I say company, I mean the management, that they have some soft deadlines regarding when each feature is going to be delivered to the customer. And I kind of understand like the management, because management, they are technology people in most of the cases, and they want to feel kind of safe and secure about the way they manage their business. And that's why they really want to understand, how can we just make sure we bring the best value first, then we can just think about supplementary values, and then we can also have some tentative outline regarding what's going to be our strategy for the next 2 or 3 quarters, let's say. And that's the entire business analysis. So the output is to have this output-driven roadmap. And then what usually happens, so business, the management, so they just figure out the feature or the idea, they just create this roadmap, and guess what? Then they invite product managers. And the role of a product manager in a hypothetical company X is basically take those features, high-level features and requirements, and create a documentation regarding it. Like, what's the acceptance criteria for this feature? What's the goal? What's the definition of done? So they take this high-level formula and they make sure the information is detailed enough so the engineers, design people can implement the idea. So that's the goal of product managers. See, they actually join the discussion mostly on the 3rd stage. Then, once the documentation is ready, what do they usually do? They just call the design people. So that we have this idea, let's implement this interesting idea. And sometimes design people freak out because they weren't part of this discussion for a long time. And they were like, okay, so what do we need? Say usually pass the user story or like documentation of the product. Design guy reads the documentation and implements the design. Next, this is when the company calls themselves agile. This is when the development just comes, they take this user story, documentation, whatever you want to call, and they just break down, the features into small tasks so the development team can just basically utilize for the delivery process. Once everything is done, testing comes at the end, when it's all the quality assurance testers are there to make sure the quality of this software guarantee the minimum requirements, and they basically are the ones giving the approval for the product to go live. Yep, and it's
so basically, if you think about if you're thinking about the work product, it's kind of what we call as
yeah, we're going to talk about it. That's what I was saying. Agile, we're going to talk about this. Agile comes on the development stage. And the company usually call themselves as agile. But even if it's, let's say, honestly, let's assume the company's delivery process is fully agile, but still a company can't just position themselves as agile company. Because you have mentioned it correctly, it's an all waterfall process. And so what's the major problem? What's the major issue of this? There are a lot of problems with this type of approach. And before we just talk about the problems, I would honestly appreciate if you guys raise your hands if you think that's the way your company currently works.
That would be the right thing.
Okay, so this is a major issue. In fact, if you just go deep down, majority companies work this way. And you can't blame anyone. This was the approach which was successful for many years, honestly. It was successful in 1980s, 1990s. The landscape wasn't as competitive as it was before. And there were companies, even giants like Microsoft, was functioning this way. But this approach has certain really huge issues. And I'm here to discuss about what's the general problem regarding this. And before I just jump to the discussion, this is waterfall. This whole process is waterfall. Even if the company thinks their development is agile, which I can truly believe, really strong product managers, they're making sure that development is agile. But problem is product management is only just touching some part of this process, and they are not fully in charge of everything. They are considered as the CEOs of their product, But the problem is like they don't have the opportunity, they don't have the enough rights to actually function as the CEO of the product. And if you're honestly the CEO of the product in that company, you're gonna be on the stage number 1 and not just join the game in stage number 3. And yeah, and we're gonna just go through each stages, and I'm gonna list potential problems from my personal experience regarding each of those stages. Yeah, so you probably just remember something interesting. So yeah, ideation. Ideation was basically the first stage when the CEO of the company just initiates a new idea, or the customer just randomly or for some specific reason requests something for the company to implement. Here's the question. What's going to happen if we actually try to implement every single request that is coming from a customer? Have you guys heard of like a Swiss Army knife? Yeah, so the first one is the actual like Swiss Army knife. It's very useful. It's still being used like in many places. I used to have one. I was like very happy with it. But imagine if this company tries to implement every single feature request they're getting from the customers. It's a bunch of feature buffet, bunch of like value propositions that could be value propositions by itself, but on a combination they bring a mass to a product. The second question, do you think C-level guys are the right candidates for giving the best product ideas?
No.
Depends on the stage, honestly. If it's a startup, I mean, yeah. If you're 2 years old like company, you are still your C-level people, your CEO, your like VP of product, the CTO. They are in charge of everything. There's not even position. CEO is just even doing office management. So those guys, they have enough time and resources to be very close to their customers. But the time when the company grows, especially when it comes to the growth stage era, CEOs and C-level people in general, they get quite busy with different stuff. CEO has so much work to do. They run the execution, they run the operations, they run the marketing, they run the business development in some cases as well. I mean, they're very like busy guys. How can you make sure that they will have enough time to know as much about your product as you do as a product manager? I mean, you are when they hire you as a product manager, honestly, now that's when you become the CEO of your product. That's when you just start to gain learnings, like literally expertise about your customer, market, business, data, and stuff like that. That's why they hired you. Because the founders, the CEO, the CTO, or VP of product, right? I mean, they don't have time for it anymore. They have literally 20 products in the company. They can't evangelize the vision. They can just manage the high-level stuff. I've seen really amazing CEOs who are doing their work as a CEO perfectly. But throughout time, the amount of learnings they get about customers is not competent anymore, which brings a huge problem. Those guys are too busy to know really well about your customers, the next segments you are trying to explore. Even they might have like really absolutely fantastic idea about the first customer segment they were trying to achieve, but throughout time you just are targeting different customer segments as well. They don't know everyone. Problem number 2, so this is basically about, business analysis, which is basically the second stage of this entire model, the waterfall model. And one of the biggest problems I've seen is just one thing. Many people never say no. And even companies, they merely accept every single request from the customer's side. See what I'm saying, right? So, let's say we don't trust CEOs anymore, right? CEO, just go do your operational stuff, you're the executor, just drive the company's vision towards its success. But still, I mean, there's different group of people who are there to just constantly bombard you with new ideas and features. It could be your customers, it could be your stakeholders, literally everyone in the company when you're an enterprise company. And my favorite quote about saying no is like coming from one of the best technology evangelists I've seen. And I had a chance to just listen to his talks in general. And I'm going to just read this piece because I think it's something that we should always adopt every time we build something new and every time we receive a new interesting idea. Steve Jobs says, "People think focus means saying yes to the things you have got to focus on. But that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there were. You have to pick carefully. I'm actually as proud of the things we haven't done as the things I have done. Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things." Do you guys agree or disagree with this statement? Yep. Very Apple style approach, honestly. Yep. And now, I mean, as I've told, this entire goal of this business analysis, right, just becomes the prioritization. So yeah, we got those ideas, now let's figure out how to just prioritize those stuff. And once we prioritize, we get everything in our traditional roadmaps, which will eventually going to learn those stuff, they're critical, honestly. If you truly think that in enterprise setting, where everything is chaotic as hell, if you think that taking into account all these like processes you went through, you can have perfectly functioning roadmap, and if your roadmaps are actually correct, I mean, you might create like really nice roadmap like for the next 2 quarters, but did you ever have a chance when you had exactly all the features implemented, everything was successful, everything was a success case for you after those 2 quarters? We're going to learn about those very soon in our upcoming discussions, but for now, we're going to ask very important 3 questions about the prioritization, because companies, the way they're trying to prioritize, they're trying to prioritize first based on the value those features are going to bring to the company, and usually stuff like how much money that will it take us to implement this feature, right? Or like how much engineering effort is going to take us to implement this feature. There's very ugly truth about it. When we're working on early stage products, honestly, none of those best experts even can guarantee the right answer to those questions. I mean, yeah, you have an idea. Let's say you have a startup idea, right? I mean, you think it's going to work because that's your idea. You're kind of subjective towards your idea, right? So, I mean, you should be subjective. But what are the chances? If every single startup idea became successful, why would there be statistics about the fact that 90% of startups fail? So that means we can kind of generate that if every single new idea in a product we can treat as a startup, it means there is let's say 90% chance it's going to fail. And these chances are getting even higher because every time we receive an idea, a feature, we're trying to directly implement everything without even having the proper evidence whether it's going to work or not. The other part is about how many developer weeks this is going to take to implement. And people who are product managers, they definitely experience a thing when you give some estimation, but most of the cases estimation doesn't just map to the reality in general. Because why? Just because the idea is solely new. You don't even just have concrete understanding about the details of this feature and the core concepts you have to digest and implement. Let's say your request is let's say implementing Skrill as a payment method, right? Skrill is many of you know, it's an online payment method, one of the most popular ones. And let's say your company decides to just implement this method because it will possibly bring more deposits and withdrawals from your system, right? So how long will that take from you to implement? Honestly, I mean, my guess would be maybe 2 weeks. The reality was kind of more than 2 weeks because there was so much documentation the team has to go through from the Skrill team, because it's not only about integrating the payment method to your platform. It is about guaranteeing the security of your customers, the safety of your transactions, and making sure that the platform works end to end. And how much money it's going to bring? Honestly, we can't guess it. I mean, we can possibly guess, but it's all about guesses. Let me bring you an example. So you guys know Amazon like Web Services, most of you. So it's a huge giant company. It was basically started like 9 years ago, I think. And when those guys approached to the board of Amazon, they were like, we have this like really cool idea. I think we can just like create amazing environment for companies who want to host their internal infrastructure on Amazon servers. And the question was like, how much money this is going to bring to Amazon at that point? The answer was $1 million. Now AWS by itself could literally be like a multi-billion-dollar company if you take out of Amazon. So it's not only about like success stories. You might exaggerate your numbers. You can't just be like too anti the true statistics regarding your numbers. So at this stage, it's really hard to say how much value it's going to bring, how much is going to grow our revenue, because we don't have historical projections about what was before. So we can't actually kind of guess what's going to be the growth for the next couple of years or couple of quarters. And one main problem regarding this business analysis is the following. Every time when the company is trying to implement all these features, all these requests, right, coming from the C-level people, the customers, there is this notion of shortage of organizational resources, which you have probably experienced as well. Because if you try to just implement 10 features, having a team of engineers of 3 or 4, of course, you won't be able to finish all those big features for the next 1 month. So you would need to actually hire more people. But this creates a wrong notation about do we actually need this huge amount of engineers in our company? Can't we just make sure that everything we're building is in a proper order with the enough amount of evidence that will just give us enough confidence that every time we reach out to the product team or every time we reach out to an engineer regarding the implementation of a feature, we at least have some evidence that it's going to work. Instead of just like blind, just giving the engineering team to implement something which eventually might be a failure, it's a huge crap. And as a company, you have to work yourself in just cutting this crap as much as you can from your way. Yeah, and there's a huge problem here as well. Like honestly, one of the biggest problems I have faced, which still exists in many companies, honestly. This is the notion of deadlines. And when we take these output-based roadmaps and deadlines, for many product teams, the illusion is getting created regarding the concept that the success is about implementation of the feature before the deadline. Because that way, we can make our business happy, right? Your boss is going to call you like, so what happened to the feature X? They're like, yeah, we finished the implementation even 2 days before the deadline. Yay, you just made your CEO happy. How about your customer? Is your customer actually using that feature? So, okay, so why do we need those product teams? Why do we need those talented teams of product managers, engineers, quality assurance people, engineers as well, and also those designers and everyone who's literally part of the product team? Why would we just hire those people and just make them to serve us? What's the danger? There's a huge danger zone here because they can work really well to make us happy, honestly. But does this mean our customers are going to be happy as well? Yeah, they want to make us happy because we are the ones who are paying them, right? They get salary from us, but the salary is coming from the customer. So who should we prioritize first, the business or when I say business, I mean the management. The management or the customer? Yep, and yeah, the part I hate most. Honestly, product managers who are currently working on products, that's what they do all days long. In most of the cases, they hate it, like documentation and stuff. Honestly, if you as a product manager just waste at least 40-50% of your day on Jira, just writing your task, your long acceptance criteria, definitions of done. You know what that is? It's all about delivery. Delivery. You are there to consistently deliver something. And you don't even know if that what you're delivering, is that actually bring a value to your customer or not? your job as a product manager in many cases just becomes this different discipline. And let's be honest, I was in one company, I was working as a backlog manager. And that's why I left the company like literally a week after. Because the interpretation of my role in that company was the following. You receive these tasks on your product backlog, you somehow just prioritize those tasks on your backlog according to some interesting logic. You can have your unique criteria, like very famous known techniques for it, doesn't matter that much. You just distribute those ideas to your engineers, they implement stuff, and you go live. That's all delivery. It's all about delivering your value to your customers. But that's honestly, I mean, the difference between like the product managers I've seen in most of the like companies compared to the product managers, Google, Amazon, Netflix, just because it's in the part when they treat delivery only just 20% of their work, honestly. Delivering the value is almost just 20%. It might be like 30%, 10% based on your like specifics, not more than that. Your job as a product manager is mostly on concentrating what's going to be the next value I'm going to deliver. And figuring out the next value, trust me, is way harder. It's way harder because there is no, as I've mentioned, there's no success formula. You gotta try and fail. You gotta try and fail. You try and probably you got a really good result. Maybe I can deliver this. Yep. Yeah, we're gonna learn about, and when I say try, I mean the experimentations and treating products as experiments in general. And just the next, I mean, not exactly this week, but in upcoming discussions, we're also gonna learn entirely like about the product discovery process from the beginning to the end. What's the pipeline for discovering something you're going to deliver? This course is not going to be a lot about like delivery, honestly, because delivery you can automate stuff. You can just figure out what's going to be your best like framework you're going to use. Doesn't have to be Scrum. I honestly use Scrum because it doesn't work for most of the cases. My only recommendation here is basically figure out what's your product culture, what's your company culture, what's your like release management. How do you release your features? How do you release your products? And then figure out what's the like procedure that works the best for you. And there's a going back. There's like a wrong like notation of product management, which is people usually call product owner, the role of a product owner. I truly hate that role. And just one reason. Because I love Agile, don't get me wrong, but for me, Agile are just like 4 values. If you can just go home and Google like Agile Manifesto, like which was just created by really genius guys from engineering background, most of them actually. It's only just like 4 like sentences. If you follow those sentences, if you think that's what you want to do, if you truly believe in those values, it means you have like Agile mindset. You don't have to just blindly go and follow a specific framework, knowing that it's going to just come to your company and save you. Let's like take Scrum for instance. I mean, I don't want you to think I'm like a Scrum hater, but honestly, from my personal experiences, the only place, like the only company with Scrum worked really well was in Germany. It was which I was consulting, so it was working quite well for them. It was like quite functional. They were like very happy about the methodology. It was actually doing pretty well, especially about their release management cycles. I've seen companies like even in Google and Amazon trying Scrum and just like, no, this is going to work for us. This is not something specific for our personal needs and the way we work, our work ethics. That's why those like frameworks, and not only Scrum, like Kanban, Scrum, DAD, they are in most of the cases pretty utopian in the sense that they just create this general customer persona who's their like customer team, right? Which in most of the cases like, is a perfect team. But let's be honest. I mean, do you actually work in perfect teams? Everything just works perfectly in your team. In most of the cases, I can bet it's not the case. So my goal here to not follow a specific framework, to not become a fan of this framework, unless making sure that's what you need as a team. And yeah, this role of a product owner, it just brought this full sense of the product manager's responsibility, which is like entirely delivery. Honestly, like if you just open like every single Scrum book, it starts from a backlog. So you have this backlog, you do stuff with the backlog. But what was there before the backlog? I mean, the backlog didn't get full by itself, right? It got full somehow. I mean, you just figured out what's going to be the ideas. So those like agile frameworks, they just promote this idea of just delivery, which we actually need, because literally like 40 years ago, like 30 years ago, there were industries like aerospace and defense, which were taking like literally decades to just deliver something, which was crazy. We don't want to do that. In the current world, it's just going to kill our business. We should follow agile, but we should never follow like any specific framework blindly. Regarding design stage, I love this part because I've seen like a designer just getting like freaked out in it. One of the companies I used to work before, because he just became part of the discussion only on the 4th stage. Like people figured out the idea, people figured out, okay, the concept, the implementation, and then they just call the designer, who in some cases they don't even sit next to your product team. If designer is not part of your product team, trust me, there's a problem. If designer sits on a different level, let's say you sit on the like 2nd floor, designer sits on the 3rd floor, issue. You need this design guy to be next to your product team, to think about your product with you as a product manager and as an engineer, to understand what's the product objectives, what are the principles of the product, what's the information architecture, what's the user experience, what's the holistic user experience. And we don't involve those guys in our product thinking. And then we just randomly call those guys and like implement this new feature. For designers, it's like something that might just play on their nerves, honestly. Because, yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about development as well. So yeah, so we just, let's say we hired this like really smart like UX architect. They figure out what's going to be our like UX architecture for the next couple of quarters. They just do all the work, and then we just call them. We're like, yeah, you would change the entire architecture because we figured out like something new. Guess what? That's a lot of organizational waste as well. And now we're going to talk about one of my favorite parts, development. So companies are trying to be agile here, which is nice, honestly. Companies are trying to be agile because they learned their lessons from like previous decades, and companies are trying to deliver their products as early as possible, because the sooner you deliver your value, higher chances you're going to get feedback from the customers, right? And the problem is that in some cases, even engineers of the product team are not involved in discussions. I mean, sometimes you might understand like design people are not being part of it because they are not like, they're design people. So I mean, people have false conception about them, which I totally disagree. But not including engineers in part of your discussions regarding the next feature, the next idea, the next strategy is something like going like to a forest like blindly. Honestly. So people usually, the way the companies try to solve this problem, they invite their chief technology officers, they invite their VP of engineering to the office, to the discussion with the management. They're like, can you just give us some like estimates regarding when the feature is going to be done? And the CTOs, they're usually like gurus of the company, and they can just give you some rough estimates or whether these idea is technologically feasible or not. But when it's an enterprise like with literally hundreds of engineers, your CTO in most of the case doesn't even know like how you wrote the latest like product, because it's growing so fast. The architecturing of the internal system is changing so fast that CTO doesn't have enough information to give the best feedback to the management. And lastly, testing stage. One of the things I don't like about this stage is similar to designers, quality assurance people, they sit in most of the cases a part of the product team. And there's a huge communication problem. There's a huge bureaucracy, because if you might have quality assurance research group as your part of your company, which is totally good. I mean, that's what I would just recommend to any enterprise. if you have this like research group of quality assurance engineers, yeah, it's going to be very helpful because they're going to just create new automation techniques, new tools. They're going to train like QAs in different like product teams. But you should never just get apart your quality assurance people from your product team, because there's a huge communication problem. Because when the quality assurance department is a separate group, a separate unit, they also do their prioritizations, right? Because they also receive features from all those product teams who are part of the company. And they just, how can you just be flexible in your release management when your quality assurance department that doesn't like prioritize your sprint, your like feature above others, so you gotta wait. And in most of the cases, the definition of done is when the quality assurance department says, okay, this is ready for live. And your going live can get postponed because of this old bureaucracy happening inside the company. So, today's the first biggest idea, I think, So, one of the biggest ideas I've experienced in my life was the following. Businesses, again, when I say business, I mean management. They like when the product team is part of the company to serve their business needs. Because every time the C-level staff even can just call you and try to make sure that you can or you should prioritize something because they think it's more important. In some cases, business think that they have enough knowledge, expertise in their customer, in their domain, and all those like relevant like specifics of the business, and they expect you to work to specifically satisfy their needs. And there's like very like fantastic quote again from Steve Jobs when it's about like hiring people. I don't remember the exact words of the quote, but it was something like this: what's the reason for hiring those smart talent for our company and then telling them what to do? When we hire those people, right, and we actually tell them what to do, they're basically going to just implement your ideas, right? Because you're their boss. I mean, they might try to say no to you, but on the long run, if you try to insist, they're going to implement whatever you say. You're the boss. And in most of the cases, like at least like 50% of your product ideas are going to fail. That's not my numbers, those are the numbers from Silicon Valley. Like big companies, even like the best product companies expect that at least 50% of their feature ideas, like new product ideas are going to fail. So you, as a business, as a management, you force those product teams to implement whatever you think is going to be revolutionary and innovative. But once it's not the case, you start blaming the people. And I think it's totally unfair. It's totally unfair to blame a product team for a failure when you are the one who are telling them what to do, when they don't feel accountable for their success, when they don't feel empowered to literally get out of the building and figure out what's going to be the value we're going to deliver. And that's what I've seen for many cases. It's a huge problem, and that's why we need to educate ourselves first, and also then to do our best to communicate this with our business as well. And I think in most of the cases, the management guys, they are very considerate guys. If you just bring them like reasonable evidence, numbers, not opinions, because numbers always beat opinions. If you bring them reasonable proof that there is a better way of treating products, like treating products as experiments, treating product teams as units of smart talent who are part of the company to solve challenges and not execute just ideas. They're going to just trust you because, I mean, they care about their business as well. If you just figure out like a better way, a revolutionary way of working, I mean, it's going to increase your chances to cooperate this way. This is about today's discussion. My goal here was to interpret the way, honestly, is done by most of the companies I have the chance to work with. I had the chance to interact like over like from 20 to 25 product companies, like startups, enterprises, and also growing stage companies. For most of those stages, that's how they work. And the difference between those best, like quickest growing technology giants that are still killing the market is that they managed to pivot tremendously. They just know the way they work. They just know the way they discover products. They just know the way they treat product teams, product managers, engineers, designers, stuff like that. And here, my goal is to make sure to learn about the alternative approach, which was a successful approach in Silicon Valley companies for many years, and that's how they failed fast. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, everyone fails. The difference is how you fail. The best product manager I've seen in my life, she was my product manager when I was at Google. Her goal was to fail in every 3 days. Not weeks, not months, in 3 days. Because if she managed to fail in 3 days, she's gonna use only small portion of organization, very tiny portion of organizational resources. That's only her, one of the engineers, and one designer.
What should be in production or in?
Before production, we're talking about it because.
But does this include users?
No, it includes communication with users, but not actually writing a single line of code. Because there are 2 types of failures we're going to talk. The first one is just when you fail before the delivery. And the second failure is when you fail before the delivery. The first failure, after the delivery. So when you fail before the delivery, right, I usually don't even call it a failure, I call it validated learning. It's validated because it got validated from your customer, literally from that guy. It's a learning because you can always gain more insights from your failure. You can base your knowledge on top of it. You can always at least understand what was something that didn't work for us.
So when we say fail, we mean, your manager, that there are certain processes for validating ideas.
Yes,
and
exactly.
These failures include inside this process.
Yes, exactly. So there's the second failure, which is after the delivery. It's not only using your product team, because it's not only your engineers. Yeah, your engineers that develop your product, then your marketing department is trying to market the product, your sales guys are trying to sell your product, your customer support is trying to do customer support of your product. So you use huge chunk of your organization resources on potential failure. And that's why there are literally companies worldwide, even in Armenia, because it's not regional, it's not cultural, it's just matter of expertise. There are companies worldwide that are failing tremendously. They're usually spending literally tens of millions of budget on implementing something which eventually gains 0 customers or very small amount of customers, doesn't affect your revenue that much. Questions so far? Yeah. Well, the failures or? Yes, because this is more of an introduction. What's the problem? And here we're going to talk a lot about 2 very important aspects of life. It's not only about product management, it's everywhere. It's about differentiating your problem space from your solution space. Because they are 2 different. People usually concentrate on solution spaces. Because you can't blame them. They understand solutions way better because that's what they see. And if you want them to just become proficient in problem space, they have to dig way deeper to understand what's the actual problem. Here we're doing the same. Before telling the solution to you guys, I wanted to make sure that you understand what's the problem space. And that's why I just broke down those cases, those examples, to justify what was the problem. And every time we're going to discuss about new concept, the new method is basically designed to make sure that we solve all those problems that I've discussed here. Because there's a solution to these problems, honestly. And because there are companies who figured out these problems. And why can't we just get lessons from them, try to not rediscover America again, and try to gain their lessons. And one important thing, product management is not a concrete science. It's not like computer science or math. There's a problem, you know how to solve a problem, that's it. But product management tells you very famous techniques, theories, ideologies, and methodologies, which you can potentially tune a little bit relevant to your culture, to your product, to the way you think, you function, you work. You tune these ideologies a little bit. And you can see how those tunes can actually help you to discover the next value much faster and much cheaper compared to what you're doing right now. Did I answer your question? Yep. Where was it? Okay. Yep.
What about the change acceptance? Because as I know, it's one of the main issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great issue. Actually, noticed in a couple of companies as well. The reason I didn't talk too much about it because it's something that happens in your life basically every day. Because people think about change acceptance when because there's a consistent change, right? But in your life as a product manager, you every day you learn something new. Every day you learn something insightful that might change your thinking about your product. And these changes might actually bring changes to your product as well. So it's totally fine to be adaptive, to be flexible, because that's what Agile says, right? Be adaptive and flexible to your changes, because changes are going to happen very often. Because, yeah.
When you are going to change the vision,
okay. That's a huge change. It's a huge issue. It's because, let's say, right now, the way I hire people, right, for my company, I just hire them using my vision. Then imagine I changed my vision a month after. So what's going to be those people's face? You kind of convinced us to join your company to solve this problem, and now you're changing the vision. What the hell? I mean, vision is not something. Yeah. Yeah, that's what Amazon does. You know what the founder of Amazon, Bezos, says about this vision and this strategy? They're like, be stubborn on your vision, but be flexible on your details. Because vision is your solution. Getting to your solution, there can be literally dozens of ways. Because your requirements can change every day. It could be from the partnership requirements because you just got a new partner. It's a huge partner. You've got to be flexible. You can't just say no to this partner because you have a backlog. You have to finish your backlog. It's fine to be flexible for your details. You should be flexible because every time you learn something, especially when you're a startup, when you're a small product, every day you gain something from your customers, from your partners, from literally everywhere in the world. You have to be flexible to changes, but make sure you don't change your vision that much because in most of the cases it means you didn't do your homework properly. And products, they usually don't fail because of vision, because usually visions are pretty big, they're pretty nice. When you hear about my vision, you're going to like my vision for sure. But when I talk about my execution or my strategy, you might dislike my execution, my strategy, because I'm using a terrible one for achieving my vision. Maybe that's not the right one. So people are usually very okay with the visions because they're big, they're revolutionary, they're innovative, they like the visions. They have problems with the strategy because strategies sometimes are not the best ways. We gotta be flexible. Yep. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Don't worry, sir.
I don't understand, and I want to find three different issues. What is me, product manager, project manager, and product owner.
Okay. Cool. So we're going to have a specific discussion about this as well. That's why it's a 5-month program, right? Because we're going to talk so much about this. Just to answer your question right now, we're going to talk about this as well very soon. Product manager is the guy in the company who solves a serious underserved customer need by providing them a value while keeping the business satisfied. It's not a difference. It's not the reverse of it, right? Because usually product managers are there to kind of make the business satisfied while making also their customers happy. But that's the difference I told you. That's not the way you keep your customers happy. Customers, they have underserved needs. And when I say underserved needs, those are the needs that have high importance for them, but they get low satisfaction from the alternative solutions in your market, right? So product managers are the guys inside your company who are there to truly understand what are your customers' underserved needs. That's the problem space, the problem. Who's your customer? What's their underserved needs, right? Once you truly know those needs, then you figure out what's going to be the best way I can solve this problem, and then making sure that this is actually the best way for solving the problem. And once I'm done with it, I'll just go to the delivery side of it. How can I deliver this discovered value to this customer segment? Product owner, yeah, as I mentioned, it's just only some part of what product management does. Delivery, 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 delivery. That's 20% of the product manager's job. Honestly, everyone who had a chance to work as a product manager, some of you might, you know how you can actually automate these processes. You can just cut the bureaucracy. You can just make your process as efficient as possible. So you can only use only 1 or 2 hours of just delivery side. The rest, the 6 hours of your day should be on what's going to be delivery, discovery. Sorry, what's going to be the value I'm going to discover next. What's going to be this problem I'm going to solve. What's this problem space and what's the statement. And project manager is basically, the way I like to just interpret project manager's job is the following. Product manager is the guy who does A to Z of product. Because they're responsible for the beginning of the product, right? They're also responsible till they're part of the company. Unless they leave the company, right, or just leave their team, they're there to responsible for the success of their product. Project management is more of a to D job. So you have your project, which you should start from step A, and step B, C, D, you're done. You deliver your project, you're good. The best way to describe project manager's role is like when you work in an outsourced company, right? You basically have a business guy from your partnering company who gives you the requirements. As a project manager, you have to make sure you just document those requirements. And you don't, in most of the cases, you don't even deal with the delivery. So, project manager, like documentation, resource management, making sure the scope is well defined, making sure like the concepts are understood. Product owner is like this plus managing the delivery. That's project manager. And the product manager is like all of this plus how can I discover the next value. So they are the guys who just run A to Z of your product. Good? Okay. Yeah? Okay, as I've mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Agile. I love Agile because Agile helps all the product teams I've had the chance to work with to actually deliver the products as effectively as possible. My only problem is when the product teams blindly follow a specific framework. When you go and work at Google, like in most of the cases, I can take like a case study from YouTube because that's where my close friend works. He's the product manager of Google Ads, so YouTube Ads. So every time you go to YouTube, there are like usually 6-second ads you see. So he's the guy managing all of this in like entire world. So, and for most of the teams of YouTube, which is part of Google actually, right? So they don't just follow any specific framework. Their goal is to be agile because they have to deliver the value very early to be on top of the market, right? Because the faster you deliver things, better you have chances to be like on top of like compared to your like competitors and people who are trying to compete with you like in direct or indirect ways. The way Nick, his name is Nick, so the way he figured out what's going to be their like framework was the following. They started with their release management. Team releases like every day and twice. The first release happens at 1 p.m. before the lunch. And the second release happens at 4 p.m. And throughout this couple hours, they have a huge product. They can always gain a lot of data. Their first release is usually very small. Very small feature or very small change to make sure if this can cause an actual impact. And those couple hours is basically a validating experience, whether to do the next release or pivot to something else. And none of those frameworks, yeah?
Twice a day?
Yeah, twice a day. They were doing twice a day. Every day, and literally every day, twice a day. Do you think Scrum is going to work for this like procedure? Do you think Kanban is satisfactory? I mean, they don't do. I mean, one thing I can know for sure is that they're lean, and we're going to talk a lot about lean product management. They're being lean when discovering something because they want to fail early, and they're being agile in delivering. And when I say agile, literally the only thing you have to know about agile, those four values, that's it. Don't even like go deep into the principles, because some of the principles, there are 12 principles, which in some cases they don't work quite well. They are basically the smaller case studies for the big values. If you truly believe in those big values, if you implement those big values in your company and just adopt as part of your mindset, you'll definitely have enough chances to actually build something very quickly and gain like insights very quickly as well. Yeah?
You mentioned three of them, who were familiar, and the third one was the application of signatures. I remember that the what?
Which one? Discipline, agile delivery.
I had a question
Yeah.
related to this. Why you like compare the with the Scrum?
Yeah, because let's be honest, guys. All those frameworks, they're businesses. Yeah. And as a business, you have to promote your framework, your idea, your methodology, your ideology. What I'm saying, I'm not against using DAD or Scrum or like Scrum or Kanban. In a lot of cases, even in a lot of cases, DAD is much better, much more flexible than Scrum. What I'm saying is just don't go and blindly follow something because people are doing it. Because you know this German company who's using DAD doesn't mean DAD is going to work for you. That's what I'm saying. To figure out what's your best framework, think about what's your product culture, what's your company culture, who are the people working in your company, what's the problems you're working on. Maybe it's like machine learning problem when you do releases like overnight because like the tests take like literally 9 hours. So you do tests, you go to sleep, you come back, you just see. So those frameworks, they are not universal. They sound universal, they are not. They might solve specific cases really well. Doesn't mean it's going to totally work for your business, for your technology company, for your product team. So yeah, what I would recommend personally, go and just try to experiment. If Scrum works for you, just go for it. I'll be happy. Like I'll be one who's saying I finally found an Armenian product team who can fully utilize Scrum with the best experiences possible, getting huge results. I've never seen before. So you might be the first one. I will even write a Medium article about you guys. But if you think it's not working for you, don't try to force yourself. Companies are hiring like those expensive agile guys, the lean guys. They're bringing like and just forcing the company to be agile. I mean, like literally, like as I've mentioned, agile are just 4 values. And any reasonable person here, everyone here actually, definitely agrees with agile values. Of course, you have to talk to your customers. Of course, you have to like prefer one-on-one conversation like over those like hundreds of like pages of documentations. Every reasonable like person agrees with the values. The problem when people enforce frameworks. And here, I'm not going to talk a lot about it because that's more of your experimentation. We can talk about what could be like indications whether you should use Scrum or like Kanban or let's say DAD or like even Scrum Band. There are different like literally dozens of like procedures you can use. There's also like extreme programming which was perfectly working for us. Extreme programming was the one which was our savior. It was working perfectly. We had no problem. It was designed for us. Just get enough learnings about what's working for you pretty well and what does not. And don't try to force yourself because the company is ending. Yep.
Can we get a break about an hour after the second lesson?
Yeah. And this course is. Yep. And this entire course is gonna just answer questions like what, how, why. Why should be actually your favorite question?
I have a question about the why.
Yes.
The whole first lesson was about practice. What should be done? Are you going the workers about the negative case, first showing what is wrong, and then you speak about how you can fix it, or straight to the right path?
Here's the answer. It's a really good question, and I actually was thinking about this in one of the companies I was working. And the problem is like, even if you think this is the right path, right? You are mostly you have some doubt.
I know. I mean, just how to explain. Okay. No, I know that we will try to discover the right path. There
Yes.
is no field set, and I
Yep.
totally agree that there is no one universal right path.
Yep.
But are we going to just discover the right path, or just first of all discover the not right path?
My answer at the beginning, you don't know.
To learn in others' mistakes.
Yeah, just let me just try to explain this in a bit longer manner. So every time we have this idea, right? We have idea X, or we think the customer segment Y have a problem X, right? It's an idea that we think might potentially be worthwhile to implement, deliver to your customers, because if we do so, we're going to give them value, and then we're going to just gain some revenue benefits directly or indirectly. At the beginning, you don't know whether it's going to fail or it's going to be successful. The problem is, when it comes to our mindset, we usually think products as very, very important part of our lives. And every time we fail something, because let's say you're a project manager, right? You have a project manager, and I have a project to implement. If you fail a project, and if you're a good manager, right, you feel catastrophic about your failure, right? Here, the psychological difference is that let's not treat our products, the discoveries, as projects. Let's treat them as experiments. Because when you treat something as an experiment, right, experiments, some of them are even designed to fail. Because that's why they're called experiments. I mean, that brings the psychological difference how you treat your new discoveries. Yeah, you think this is a good idea. It might be the right path, but it might not be the right path. If it's the right path, I'll definitely know about it sooner or later. But if it's not going to be the right path, it might take me a while. It might take me 4 months to understand that it wasn't the right path. The question is, how can I just reduce those 4 months of work to 1 week, 4 days? I'm not sure if I entirely answered your question. We can just talk about this later if you want to. I will be here, so just to make sure everyone can ask questions. I think, yeah, we passed 4 hours limit, and I know everyone has a full-time job, so I'm going to be here to be harsher on you. So yeah, I guess we can just finish for today. Okay, during the next discussion, we're going to start from problem-solving sessions. I have an interesting idea here. So during those 5 months, one of my goals to actually prepare you to get into Google. To prepare you to get into Google. So we're going to actually have interview questions basically every day, during every lecture. We're going to have questions typically asked for product managers at Google. And imagine what's going to happen if we just solve those problems for 5 months. No, I mean, don't go to work for Google. Google is an evil company, even though they're saying they're not. But yeah, if you just get strong enough to get into that company, that means you are strong enough to go and kill a product on the market, to go and just create something really good, really, using the best techniques that are known from that company as well. So next session, we're going to start from problem solving, then we're going to start discussing about products, especially technology-driven products and different variations of that. Thank you.